All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're looking at a multinational corporation, not just as a company, but really as this complex, living, breathing engine that requires absolute, perfect synchronization to run. Welcome to the anatomy of a global enterprise.
So you gotta ask yourself, what actually separates a local regional business from a massive global powerhouse that operates seamlessly across continents? Is it just size? Well, not quite. The true goal is maximizing profits across borders. But getting there, that means mastering a crazy web of logistical, financial, and cultural complexities that would completely crush a purely domestic company.
To figure out how they do it, here's our blueprint for today. We're going to deconstruct three critical gears: supply chain and manufacturing, multinational finance, and international HR. Then, we'll synthesize how this global engine works together and finish up with some master takeaways.
Okay, let's kick things off with the physical operations. System 1, global supply chain and manufacturing.
You know, in global operations, excess inventory is basically just trapped cash. It's sitting there doing nothing. So think of just-in-time, or JIT manufacturing, as an enterprise diet plan. It keeps things incredibly lean. By timing the receipt of goods exactly to when production needs them, companies avoid these super costly holding fees. It frees up capital for actual growth, rather than just letting it sit in a dusty warehouse halfway across the world.
But, well, here is the catch, right? Speed means absolutely nothing without quality. When your supply chain is crossing oceans, maintaining consistent standards is a literal nightmare. Enter Total Quality Management. This is the solution. It ensures that product defects are systematically reduced so that a microchip built in Taiwan fits perfectly with a motherboard assembled in Mexico. It guarantees that defects don't stall that JIT engine we just talked about, regardless of where a component is ultimately made.
And because you're operating globally, you're practically inviting global disruptions. Building an agile supply chain is all about ultimate flexibility. You have to avoid single sourcing at all costs. I mean, if a factory in one region goes down, your diversified suppliers elsewhere must be ready to pick up the slack instantly. You utilize global sourcing to strategically reduce labor costs, sure. But you have to design these complex networks to guarantee quick recovery from those inevitable disruptions. Otherwise, you're looking at massive financial losses.
Right, moving on to the lifeblood that keeps this whole engine lubricated and running. System 2, multinational financial management.
To really grasp global finance, you have to understand the chaotic waters these companies are sailing in every single day. On one side, we have fixed exchange rates. These are anchored down and actively managed by governments. On the other side, floating exchange rates, just bobbing up and down based entirely on the market forces of supply and demand. And since most major economies use floating rates, it means values are constantly fluctuating based on macroeconomic shifts. And because those exchange rates are constantly fluctuating, multinationals face this frankly daunting accounting challenge called currency translation. Imagine running massive operations in Japan, Europe, and Brazil all at the exact same time. At the end of the quarter, you have to convert those diverse global profits, yen, euros, reais, back into a single home currency just to accurately report your balance sheet. A sudden currency drop in one market can literally wipe out a fantastic quarter of global sales in the blink of an eye when you translate it back to headquarters.
Because of all that crazy volatility, smart leaders, they don't gamble with their profit margins. No way. They use tools like hedging to explicitly minimize their currency risk. By using financial instruments like currency swaps, for example, they essentially bulletproof their finances against sudden, unpredictable macroeconomic shocks in the foreign exchange market.
Okay, so we've got the physical supply chain, we've got the financial lifeblood, but what about the people? That brings us to System 3, International Human Resource Management.
The real challenge with global HR isn't just about, hiring bodies to fill desks. It's about connecting a massive decentralized mind. So instead of just hiring locally, companies strategically deploy expatriate managers. These folks aren't just working abroad for fun, they are human bridges. They're temporarily assigned to transfer core corporate DNA, specialized skills, and company culture directly to foreign subsidiaries. They act as the glue binding the local operations to the global headquarters.
Building a successful international leader happens in 4 distinct steps. First up, selection. And actually, scratch that, you can't just pick your best domestic performer. It doesn't work. They require deep cultural adaptability. Second, rigorous cross-cultural training is a must, so they truly understand the customs and values of their host country. Third is deployment, typically using a balance sheet approach to compensation to ensure pay equity and maintain their standard of living. And finally, repatriation.
bringing that highly valuable, hard-earned global perspective back home and reintegrating it into the broader company.
So we've seen all the individual gears. Now let's synthesize this and put the whole thing together. The global enterprise engine.
This is where it gets really interesting, because these pillars absolutely cannot operate in silos. They are completely interdependent. Think about it. If your supply chain relies on just-in-time manufacturing efficiency in a foreign market, you are inherently exposed to currency fluctuations. That immediately demands financial hedging to mitigate the risk. But you can't successfully negotiate those complex local supply and financial contracts without culturally adaptable HR leadership who've actually undergone cross-cultural training. Every single gear turns the next.
So what's the ultimate goal here? It is a transnational strategy. This is the absolute holy grail of global business for sure. It's this incredibly difficult high-wire act of operating with massive, standardized efficiency on a global scale while simultaneously catering intimately to the unique demands of local markets. It's not just about standardizing everything, and it's not just about localizing everything, it's mastering both of those things at the exact same time. To wrap up our analysis today, let's distill all this down. Here are the master takeaways for global leaders.
Consider this your rapid-fire playbook for the world stage. Number 1, never forget that the core goal is maximizing profits across borders. 2, embrace localization. You have to adapt your marketing and operations to fit local conditions or you'll fail. 3, always run a pestle analysis before expanding so you systematically understand the external political and legal environments. And 4, master the management of cultural diversity or just sit back and watch friction destroy your efficiency.
Operating globally is definitely not for the faint of heart. It demands absolute harmony across your supply chain, your finances, and your human resources. As you look at your own organization, you really have to ask yourself, does it have the agility, the financial safeguards, and the cultural empathy to truly conquer the world stage? Or is it really only equipped to play in its own backyard? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep analyzing, and I'll see you next time.